Today on the Relationship Renovation Podcast, we are lucky enough to have Ben Tzeel. He is a registered dietitian. He is a certified diabetes educator.
They can live life with diabetes on the back burner where it's not impacting the relationship. It's not impacting what they're doing on the day-to-day.
I wouldn't have even thought about the stress and the impact on blood sugar number.
The first thing is it will control your life as much as you allow it to.
How about sex intimacy?
If your numbers are controlled, there should not be any issue.
He does an amazing job of just bringing out the human side of those who have diabetes.
Be able to just do the things that I want to do when I want to do them with the people that I want to do them with.
Hello, all, and welcome to the Relationship Renovation Podcast. I'm Tarah Kerwin.
And my name is EJ Kerwin. And today is it's a really important topic because it is something that affects literally millions of Americans, millions of people all over the world. Definitely, if it affects you as an individual, it affects you in your relationship. And we have somebody who's not just an expert, but also somebody who's lived it. And I want to introduce everybody to Ben Tzeel. He is a registered dietitian. He's a strength coach. He's also a certified diabetes educator, and he's an individual who has lived with diabetes for over 25 years of his life as a type 1 diabetic. So welcome, Ben, to the Relationship Renovation Podcast.
I'm so excited to be here and have a very open and real raw conversation surrounding all things relationships and all things diabetes because nobody talks about it.
Yeah, tell us, jump right in. Tell us who you are, how you ended up in the place you're at and why you're sort of doing what you're doing.
Absolutely. So I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was 7 years old. And it's one of those things where it's going to turn your life upside down at any age. But at 7, you're just getting acclimated to school. You're meeting your friends, and it can really impact every facet of life. And so I was at Six Flags when I found out it was my first time ever going to a theme park. And that obviously did not go as planned. But from there, it was always just a lot of no's. I want to eat this birthday treat with the rest of my class. No, you can't have that. It's too difficult. Oh, I want to go play sports with my friends. No, you can't do that. Your blood sugar is going to crash. And it got really exhausting to keep hearing no and no again and again and again. So as I got older, I started realizing I need to figure this out or I'm going to live this life in this tiny little box that everybody's defining for me. And so I played sports. I got into working out. I got into nutrition, and I started to realize over time, these were massive things that I was figuring out. My doctors weren't super helpful. My dietitians weren't super helpful. And from there, it just became hey, someone needs to be able to solve these issues because in the world, it feels like with respect to diabetes, people can typically do blood sugar management and nutrition, but not exercise. Or they can do exercise and nutrition, but not diabetes management. So I figured, why not become that person that can encompass all three of those and fill that void so people don't have to keep hearing no and they can live a life unrestricted by a condition that they did not ask for.
Your own advocate so you can help so many others, which obviously on your social media following, you are helping thousands and thousands of people. So thank you for that.
Well, and I love the framing that you did right off the bat of restrictive versus unrestrictive, because we work a lot with people about negative core beliefs. And I could see as a young kid, it's you can't do this, you can't do that would infect everything, that you just start seeing the world as smaller and smaller and maybe less and less just possibilities for you. And and that's your path was to personally break out of that.
I just felt everything just kept coming to a no. I remember as a kid, space was one of my favorite things. I don't think I've actually ever said this on any public forum. I loved outer space. I was I want to be an astronaut. And that was the first thing they told me I couldn't do because of diabetes. And I think that's actually still the case now. But I was super dejected as a little kid because it was, okay, that was my dream. That's not happening. But then it just became something as simple as having a cupcake in your, second grade, third grade class. And then you just start to wonder, what can I eat? What can I actually do? And over time, not only does it weigh on you, but your relationship with food and relationship with exercise just gets absolutely, completely dysfunctional and can lead a lot of people to a really bad place.
Well, I was going to say, not to mention just feeling like you're so different from others and people treating you differently. I'll just share something. So EJ runs a boys camp in Maine every summer. And there was a child last summer, the summer before, who had type 1 diabetes. And the nurses had to be on him 24/7. And like, he would just be like, you could see like the nurses would have to go, like if he was out on the soccer field and his blood sugar dropped, and he would just be like, please leave me alone. Like, you're doing this in front of all of my friends. Like, I had never experienced a close like relationship to that I got to see. And I remember I just felt so sad for him that he had to keep getting pulled out or woken up at 2 a.m. because his blood sugar. That's my only experience, but that was really hard.
That's a legit one too, because that was growing up. We didn't have a lot of the technology that exists now. So it was a lot of wake up at 3 a.m. or 2 a.m., test your blood sugar. Oh, you're low. Drink this juice, sit out while everyone else is doing this thing, or get pulled out of class for whatever reason. It becomes a lot. And you do start to, even just from a friendship perspective, you feel different, and kids can be cruel. And depending on who you're around, it definitely impacts you from a social perspective. And a lot of people end up isolating.
Yeah. What do you see like when you're talking to people, who are moving into adulthood or are adults? Like, what is like the sort of like emotional, psychological impact of living with diabetes from such an early age?
I think a lot of it, at least in my experience and what I've seen with patients, is you have this thing that just does not take a break. Like it's 24/7, 365. While we're talking, I have a rough idea of what my blood sugar is because of the continuous glucose monitor. But at any moment, things can go up, things can go down, depending on what you're doing. And it just weighs on you. Like I used to joke, it was like having an unpaid internship or an unpaid job, but it just doesn't stop. Yeah. And so you're doing that and balancing that over here while you've got everything else in your life, your social life, your professional life, your family life, all having to be done at the same level as everyone else. You know, it could be the equivalent of people are walking down the street and you're walking through quicksand with a weighted vest on.
Yeah, it's like you have like this like app in the background that's always running, occupying part of your RAM, your memory space, and you can't turn it off, right? Because it's literally life threatening to ignore it.
Oh, it's one of those things where I think the stat is about 180 extra decisions per day on average for people living with diabetes.
Wow, that's amazing.
That is, and can I just say one thing? Because I'm a mom, and I know if like my child was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, I would be an absolute like hypervigilant wreck. Like, and then what does that do as someone's growing older, right? Here's your mom like helicoptering. I don't know if that was your experience. I just know if this, right? And like, what does that do? It's almost like I feel so cluttered, or what is the word I'm looking for? Like, almost like you're drowning in other people's hypervigilance of your situation. I don't know if that was true for you, Ben, but.
Well, for me, it was interesting because in retrospect, I'm really grateful for how my parents kind of ran the show, because at the time I wasn't happy about it, but transitioning into adulthood, it ended up helping me a lot, especially seeing now some of the parents that have been exactly what you just described.
Yeah.
Because my parents, I think I was 2 or 3 weeks in, I was already giving my own injections. I was counting my own carbs, and they were making me make my own food, which for an 8-year-old at the time, I wasn't happy about that. Everyone else's parents were making their lunches, but then I learned really quickly what carb counting looked like, how to figure out my insulin dosing, etc. And that helped me, because there's people now where we'll see them, the parents come, the kids there, the kids 15, 16, 17, and mom and dad have been doing it the entire time. And so then they don't know how to be independent. And then college is looming in the background if they're planning on going or living independently. And that's a huge transition. It's hard enough when you have a pretty good hand in it, let alone when your parents have been running the entire show.
I love that your parents trusted you from an early age to have that autonomy. That's huge.
So let's start playing like, you're starting to get a little bit older, you're in high school or college. Like, do like the people you're dating, do they know? Is it something you want to tell them? Is like, how does diabetes sort of fold into relationships as you're growing up?
It's for romantic relationships and dating. It's kind of, now I see it as, it can be however you make it. It's kind of create your own adventure. But at the beginning, it's super daunting, because you think about it and you're thinking, do I tell them out of the gate? Do I not want to tell them out of the gate because I want them to get to know me as a human being? But at some point, the cat's going to be out of the bag, right? You're either going to have a high blood sugar, you're going to have a low blood sugar, you're going to have to dose. And if somebody truly cares about you, they're going to have to accept that part of you. And so if I'm being honest, I mean, the first 10 years I had diabetes, romantic aside, I didn't really talk about it that much.
You didn't want
really
people to know.
Make it prominent. I was just like, hey, I'm just going to keep this to myself because I didn't want to be treated different because I had been treated differently. Once I got into college and the dating world started picking up, I was a little hesitant at the beginning, but usually by, the third, fourth time we'd hang out, it would start to come up, and it obviously depended on the person. But as I got into my 20s, it became hey, this is happening out of the gate, and it's kind of take it or leave it type of deal.
Well, and most type 1 diabetics now have like the continual insulin, right? Where they monitor and they have like a catheter. Is there a lot of is there like body image stuff or like insecurities around, I got this thing attached to me?
Oh, yes. And I think it depends again on the person, just like anything else. But I know a lot of times on the female side of things, there are people who just say, hey, I don't want to wear an insulin pump because I don't want people to see it, whether it's, clipped to a dress or where am I going to put it? Yeah. And on the other side of things, they just don't want technology showing in pictures. Like it can be very, very strange in that regard because they're like, I don't know what to do. Like I'm wearing a bikini, I have an insulin pump. What do I do? In my case, I didn't really care because I could just clip my pump to my, shorts. Hey, I'm fine. But it also depends on the person. Like that is a very real thing. And then tack that on with constantly having to think about what you're eating and what you're doing for activity and the insulin dosing. And it all just turns into this big convoluted mess if you let it get out of hand.
What is, Ben, when you're thinking about, right, this is my job, this is my passion, this is what I want to do. Like, what is your heart wanting to do with other people who are struggling and or have someone close in their life that does have type 1 diabetes? Like, why do all of this?
I think it really comes down to me, I think a couple of things. One would be getting the actual information that's pertinent and useful, because it took me decades. It took me years to figure out what actual stuff was helpful. Because you go to your doctor every 3 months, they give you 10 to 15 minutes of glory. You might get one adjustment if you're lucky, and then you're out till 3 months later. If you have a diabetes educator, a lot of them are still spewing out information from back when I was diagnosed in 1999.
Wow.
And the game's changed quite a bit. So I feel like bringing the pertinent information to the forefront, making it fun, making it easily digestible, and making it so people can see actual lasting impact so their quality of life's better and they can live life with diabetes on the back burner where it's not impacting a relationship. It's not impacting what they're doing on the day to day. Sure, it's there. You have to pay attention to it, but it's not something that's taking up half of their brain's RAM, as EJ was saying before. Like
freedom.
Exactly.
Yes.
So what are the things, what are the main things that you're educating, an individual who just found out or has been poorly educated, for a big portion of their life? Like, what are the things you're really getting across to people?
I think a lot of it tends to be, and from a science perspective, and then of course I'll go to the, interpersonal side, but the science side is typically first, how can we get you to just live the life you had a week ago before you were diagnosed, right? How can we get you back to, I know what I want to eat. I'm going to point at the menu. I want that. How am I going to be able to carb count it, consider the fat, consider the protein, dose appropriately? How am I going to be able to exercise and do a formal workout or just go for a walk around the neighborhood and keep my numbers steady and be able to just do the things that I want to do when I want to do them with the people that I want to do them with? And so it is a lot, right? It feels like drinking out of a fire hose when you're first diagnosed. And I tell people it does get easier with time, but there is still that adjustment period. But while all that's going on, then there's also that, the psychosocial side of things where how do you include that with, hey, you have to not tell your social circle, or do you not tell your social circle? Yeah. Like I had situations growing up where from a baseball perspective, I vividly remember, and you guys will probably appreciate this one. I think I was 12. I had a tryout. There was one travel team in my area. This is way back in the day, and thought I did really well. I talked with, the coach's kid after. He's like, oh, I can't wait. This is going to be such a great summer. Your name's on the roster. This is great. We go to get ice cream at Dairy Queen, and my blood sugar, I tested it, and it was 459 or 465. It was something way, way, way high, super out of range, potentially dangerous level. And me, thinking, oh, I should tell the adult that my blood sugar is high, so I'm not going to eat the ice cream right now. Well, me thinking that at the time was probably a terrible idea, because the next day I get a phone call from the coach saying, oh, hey, Ben, sorry you didn't make it this year. Better luck next year, bud. And then the next 2 years, it was the same situation. And so that hit me hard. So that was part of why I started just internalizing everything and not letting it out. But now one of my goals is to not allow those situations to happen to people and not let diabetes interfere with their lives like that.
We just want to tell you all about something that we offer, which is the Relationship Renovation at Home program. It's basically the way in which we've worked with couples for years in our counseling center, but a way that you and your partner can do it at home.
It gives couples structure to build that emotional safety and the skills that we didn't learn, but that are so essential to learn in building a healthy relationship.
Yeah, there's lessons, there are videos. It's a real structured way for you and your partner to reconnect. So just go to our website. There's a tab on top, online programs, and you can download a free sample. You can check it out. We know it's made a significant difference in hundreds of couples' relationships. So please go check that out.
Oh my gosh. It's like your dreams just get knocked out of the freaking ballpark, literally.
Well, it's back to that limited thing. It's like you're not the only one who limits yourself. The world starts limiting you.
And you can't change that in terms of, without whoever that person was, hopefully they're doing well, but I couldn't change their perception once they saw that. And from their mind, it was probably he's a medical liability or he'll be a pain in the butt to deal with. I don't want to have that issue. And years later, had different coaches, had different situations. No one cared. They said, hey, Ben's on top of it. He's good. But that particular situation, which at the moment, it's the biggest thing in your life. All your friends are on the team. You're so excited.
Yeah.
That's a huge deal.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things that people don't always consider. And it made me feel like I always had to do double what everybody else did just to get the same level of attention or the same recognition.
Okay. So, can we go interpersonal?
Of course.
So when you start to, because like you said in the beginning, it was more of an avoidance piece and you're in college and whatever, like take us to right now in your intimate relationship, like how you are, navigating this in a healthy way with your partner and helping so many others to have this like freedom, although yes, this diagnosis.
Definitely helps that my wife is a pharmacist. So that was, to me, it was hilarious. Like on our first date, she saw my insulin pump and she's like, I learned about that because they brought the rep in the pharmacy school and taught us exactly how to use it. So I literally had her dose for my food that day. But that was over the top. That was exceptionally rare. And I'm grateful for that now. But it kind of becomes one of those things where, at least for us, there are times where she'll follow my blood sugar on the continuous glucose monitor app. And if my number's really high and she has a shift that's really early and I'm still sleeping, or if, maybe it's super late and I'm not paying as close attention, she'll, give me the nudge of, hey, your number's a little bit out of range, maybe you want to do something, or are you feeling okay? But we try to have it where I'm still the one 95% of the time who's in the driver's seat. And then she's kind of there just as that support.
Yeah.
Because she knows, hey, in her mind, she's like, I don't want to have main character syndrome for something that isn't mine to discuss as much, even though she's more than qualified to deal with something like this. And gratefully, like, she doesn't mind. We go to a restaurant, I'm going to carb count the meal before I eat it. And she knows sometimes that might take a few minutes. And I'm really grateful she's willing to, sit through that if we're sharing something and really just let me do those calculations. Some people don't have that dynamic, but I think for us, we've tried to make it where she knows if I feel good, we're going to then thrive as a couple instead of just, hey, he's just all over the place and now I'm frustrated and he's frustrated and he doesn't feel well and then the whole night gets ruined.
Yeah, it feels like you guys have like agreed upon systems boundaries around what works for you in your relationship where you're not feeling like codependent with each other.
Yes, which was not always the case, by the way, with different partners I've had prior to my now wife. There was definitely some not great situations that I learned from over the years.
And what would that be? Like somebody who's just like is annoyed or frustrated by the fact or can't relate
or
to
an overfunctioner. I'm an overfunctioner. I would have been like, ooh, let me take this on.
I vividly remember there was one girl when I was in college who would tell me what to dose or how much to dose or when to dose. And I'm like, this is my thing. Like, I've had this for, at that point, I think it was like 13 or 14 years. Like, you've been dating me for 3 months. Why are you trying to tell me what I need to do? And then that would become a point of contention, especially if my number went out of range and I didn't listen to what she had said.
Yeah.
And that, again, obviously boundaries from the outset in a relationship are going to be super important around diabetes. But that was something where it was just not pleasant. And for her, it was just overbearing. I came from a good place, I'm sure, but it's just kind of like, you're not going to be the part. Like, I want you to be there to, if my number isn't good, so I don't feel good, I want you to be there to support me, but not to tell me what I'm doing wrong, because that doesn't help anything.
When I don't want to, I want a girlfriend, not a mother.
Precise. You could not have said that.
Yeah.
That's not sexy.
I could see though how that could go all kinds of ways. Where like there could be a kid who's been really, taken care of by their mother or father, whomever, whatever was sort of more the helicopter parent, and then getting into adulthood and looking for somebody who's going to kind of fulfill that role and continue to be their caretaker. Or, I mean, there's all kinds of ways it could go, right? Also, somebody who gets out and has had somebody take care of them, and then they get out and they almost want to pretend they don't have diabetes and they mismanage their health, right? It just seems like, I bet you clean up a lot of emotional messes that look just like medical messes.
I was going to ask Ben, like, what that process is like when he's with his clients. Okay, so you're providing the psychoeducation, right? You're providing, just like your own experience of how to be in a place of acceptance around this where you're not feeling limited. How else are you coaching people through their like interpersonal relationships? Like, what have you noticed, and what am I trying to say? How are you of support?
I think the big thing is, of course, once we get like the scientific side of things down, if I'm going to call it that, the tactical, the nutrition, the exercise, the blood sugar specific things, while that's happening, and then especially once there's a solid foundation, a lot of the other things start to come up, right? Because diabetes impacts literally every aspect of your life. So with that, that's when we start to hear, oh, hey, there's this girl I'm talking to, or, oh, hey, there's this, guy I've started dating. And there are also times where I think of a patient from the other day. I was looking at their blood sugars and her numbers were just running high. And I'm like, this is not like you. Your numbers are 20, 30 points higher than your average. And she started going into and actually broke down because she was having a really, really, really tough time with her significant other. And stress can make your blood sugar skyrocket. So there's times where they don't outwardly tell, but then looking into things and diving into things deeper, we may notice, my team and I, different trends that are a result of just straight stress from those relationships. And that's really, really, really daunting.
So when you're dealing with one of your patients like that, like what, because it sounds like boundaries are really important, right? Especially with significant others. What advice, what do you give them? What do you tell them?
Well, I think the first thing would be, in a situation like that, or even like the one I just referenced, of course, what's there that could possibly be done from a physical health standpoint, which there's only so much, because once your cortisol goes up, your blood sugar's up, and it will not usually come down until you chill out. With that, and I mean, the perfect example of that was, there was a person I was dating when I was in grad school, and I had a brutal week, like absolutely like brutal, multiple exams. She and I were back and forth. There was a really toxic relationship. And my number at one point, it went from like 120 to 230. And I kept correcting with insulin, correcting. It did not move.
Wow.
And then finally, when I chilled out, I meditated, I cleared my subconscious, and it truly chilled out. My number went right back to 120 and I didn't do anything.
Wow.
So that is how strong stress can be. But in a case like that, I usually talk about similar things of, hey, what self-care are you doing? What can you do to try to diminish the cortisol? What are you doing to try to diminish the fight or flight and be present? Yeah. And that typically helps a little, but then also it comes down to the boundaries, what is the problem in the relationship, if there is one. And I don't overstep in that case, but if I have two sets,
send them our way, Ben. Send them our way.
Gladly. Literally, thank you, because I need somewhere to
But emotion regulation, because we think about it in terms of like, oh my gosh, when couples are fighting and like they're way out of their window of tolerance, and then things just go from bad to worse, and how important emotion regulation is in that area, but I wouldn't have even thought about the stress and the impact on blood sugar number. Like that is just, so you're also teaching people emotion regulation.
Well, and it's obviously not like the
It's like you're a therapist and you don't know it, Ben. Okay, I'll stop.
I'm not, I promise I always tell people, I'm like, I promise you I'm not a therapist, but I have to know some of this stuff. And we ultimately need to, because this becomes a very real part of management. And like for that one patient, she was doing everything else right. Like she'd say, hey, my blood sugar was high. I went and drank more water because usually hydration is a part of it. I got some steps because that's usually a part of it. Yeah. I took my correction dose. I changed my pump site and it wouldn't come down. And I'm like, that is stress in a nutshell. Like that is the power of what stress can do. And so working on that is probably if not in the first tier, it's in the second tier of things that we try to work on with people, because it has to be referenced or otherwise. I mean, it could be stress from work or stress from a relationship, but it's going to impact you nasty.
So what are the main things you want to get across to people about type 1 diabetes? Like what are the things if you have a friend, if you're in relationship with somebody, because clearly, if somebody is a type 1 diabetic, working with somebody like yourself is going to be important, right? But what is the main thing you want to get across to everybody else?
I think the first thing I would love people to know with respect to you have diabetes, the first thing is it will control your life as much as you allow it to, whether it's relationship, whether it's your physical health. If you allow it to run the show, it will run the show. If you decide, hey, I'm going to control this, it doesn't have to. It can truly be that thing that's on the back burner. You live your life and you're just acknowledging it, you're paying attention to it, and you're moving on. And so that's, I think, one of the absolute biggest keys about diabetes, because so many people think I was diagnosed, my life is over, this is it. And it does not have to be that way unless you allow it to. Any food is on the table. You can, do any type of activity. I have someone who's 72 years old, free climbing rocks, like large mountains and all sorts of crazy stuff, and doing, 15K hikes. 72 years old in the middle of the desert with diabetes and doing just fine. So like, if she can do it, you can do anything. Like if there's professional athletes that have type 1, there's no limitation unless you impose that limitation.
I love that, having this sense of agency and empowerment, although having this diagnosis. That is awesome. Finding strength in things we don't have control over.
So we got to go there. You said if you want to do it, you can do it. Let's go. How about sex intimacy? Like, is there any ways that a couple would want to know that this might affect them if one of them has diabetes?
I think the biggest thing there is if your numbers are controlled, and I've said this to patients many times, if your numbers are controlled, there should not be any issue. Like if you're, working on having sex and you're in that phase and you're like, hey, let's do it. If you are in range, you should be fine. I will say, both personally and professionally, your blood sugar goes low, that's you're done. Like it's not happening for at least the next 30, 40 minutes. If your blood sugar is
just physiologically,
it's the flagpole's done. Like that's but then if your number's too high, it's still doable, but the sensation's not quite there. The pleasure's not quite there. It's just not the same type of experience. I would say if I put a barometer on it, probably over 200. It's still doable. It's just not ideal. And once you get to a certain point, probably 300 plus, I just wouldn't advise it. It just, if you can even make it happen, it's just not going to be fun.
Interesting.
But in general, right, the more you're in range, the better off things are going to be. If you're, family planning, there's really, really tight rules around blood sugar control, especially for the women, that they have to maintain both before and then during the pregnancy to make sure that the baby's healthy as well. So different things that they have to be top of mind. But that's why with our patients, we try to say, hey, let's keep you in great control all year round, no matter what the situation is. So if you decide I want to start a family, you can just start instead of having to really, really, really start trying.
I love that you look at this from like every possible angle, from intimately to family, extended family, to personally, like
to mindset.
Mindset. Like you bring all of this stuff in.
Well, and it just extends to all of it. And I feel like a lot of times we get lost in that, right? We think, oh, it's just the physical side of things, or it's just, how my blood sugar is and how I'm feeling at this moment. But it really does impact everyone around us. And I will say, I think from what I've seen when my wife's in videos with me, or she does, podcast episodes with me, people love those because they love hearing her perspective as the person without diabetes as well.
Oh my God, we have to do that. That could be like a part
we'll
two.
have you. That would be awesome. It would be great to interview you guys. How long have you guys been together?
We have been married for just over 2 years, and we've been together for a little over 6. So I feel like we've got some good stuff to talk
All right,
about. She loves it.
We'll bring you back on and you guys can tell your story. Well,
I would love that.
Well, thank you, Ben. It's been great to dip in a little bit. You're obviously a wealth of information. Yeah. I love just the whole thing about like not letting your life be limited, not letting it shut off and become a big no, like it was for you a little bit as a kid. So thank you for sharing that.
And it reminds me too, a lot of the work, like we have couples that come in and they feel hopeless, like there's no chance, right? And then you help them find hope again and a sense of agency and that empowerment. So thank you for doing that within this community. And how can people find you?
So people can find me on Instagram or TikTok at Man of Tzeel. So MANOFTZEEL, or my team and I, we're all on YourDiabetesInsider.com. That's the name of the site and the name of the practice that we have for people with or without diabetes, but most of them tend to have diabetes.
And you work with people across state lines. You can work with people all over.
We definitely have certain rules we have to follow, but fortunately as dietitians, it is a little more liberal. So we do have a bunch of states that we can work with, which is awesome.
Awesome.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much for the work you do. We can't wait for part 2 with your wife.
I'm so excited for that. I feel like she's going to lose her mind. She's like, oh my God, this is the most amazing thing ever. But I'm just grateful to get to chat with y'all and get to know y'all and for y'all allowing me to do this.
Oh yeah. Thank you so much. And for all of the work you do. And as always, take care of yourself, take care of each other. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hello, Relationship Renovation listeners. Just wanted to say thank you so much for listening, for all of the awesome reviews, the comments, the feedback on our YouTube channel. We're just so grateful. We offer these podcasts free of charge. If you do want to make a donation, that's always super helpful, and you can do it in our show notes. Thanks again for listening. We're very, very grateful.